Hi, Dr. Stephen Smith here, an integrative medicine physician. One of the things I see frequently in the office is a new onset of fatigue. It may come on fairly quickly. So what are the common causes of these? Some of them you'll probably think of. The most common one is an intestinal bacterial overgrowth. This usually happens more frequently in older people or diabetics, and they eat some food, maybe too much sugar, and they get the bacteria growing. They may not have good bowel flora to begin with, and they get a bacterial overgrowth. We call this SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. These organisms give off chemicals. These chemicals can affect our brain, can interfere with our energy production. Fortunately, if this is a rapid occurrence and not a chronic occurrence, then you can deal with this fairly quickly by taking some antimicrobials. Oregano extract is one that I use a lot. We have a product called ADP, and there's other companies that make products as well, but these are oregano extracts, olive leaf extract, grapeseed extract. All of these products can reduce that bacterial load fairly quickly. If this is a new onset, now if you do this and you've had this chronically and you do what I'm going to tell you, you may have an unpleasant reaction because you'll kill too many bacteria and you'll load yourself with toxins. But if this is fairly new and sudden, you can simply take these antimicrobials. And I dose them pretty high, like 2 to 3 twice a day with a little bit of food on there. And usually within 48 hours, you can knock that bacteria down. Now, if this is happening on a regular basis, then you probably have a small bowel that needs some attention. Mainly, it needs to be fed. Typically, when the small bowel gets weak, it gets leaky, it gets susceptible to these infections. And the other thing that can cause this is an undiagnosed sensitivity to gluten. Just in the last month, I've seen several patients that didn't know they had a gluten problem, and all 3 of them had parasites, including tapeworms. In fact, we saw 3 tapeworms in the last month from people that with undiagnosed gluten intolerance. But in general, if you just take these antimicrobials along with some probiotics, the probiotics alone usually don't do the trick. Probiotics typically do not have a long-term effect in the bowel. They can help in the short term, and if you're taking them regularly, they're helpful. But as a long-term solution, they're not very effective by themselves. But if you knock down that bacterial load, and I recommend ADP, that's what I keep around the house, or olive leaf extract or grapeseed extract also works pretty nicely. And significant doses. Don't take 1 pill or 2 pills. Take 2 or 3, 4, 5 of these in a day. You can knock this down, and usually within 48 hours, you can see the energy return and the brain fog go away. Now, that's one of the more common ones. Another one that I see, this is less frequent, is mitochondrial problems. Now, these tend to be more chronic, and they are characteristic by a sort of a steady fatigue, made worse with exercise, especially severe exercise. You can feel tired and not be able to recover like you'd normally. Exercise would energize you, make you feel better. But in people with mitochondrial disease, exercise will actually make them feel worse. And this, fortunately, is a problem that we now have some very good supplements that seem to work quite nicely, because what they do is they provide the mitochondria with a part of the ingredients they need, sort of like a cake mix, so they don't have to process everything. It just takes a load off and makes it easier for the mitochondria to make ATP, which is our source of energy. Now, I don't test on the need for that, but I've noticed when I take this product, ATP Fuel, I have more energy, even though I'm not testing that I need it. So that's another source of fatigue. And you can, of course, have a combination of these. And the most common one we see is some adrenal stress. Now, this can be chronic or it can be fairly acute too. If you have some kind of big stress in your life and you're not sleeping, then you can get this adrenal fatigue. And your body is trying to make cortisol to cope with the stress. And after a while, it just sort of fails. Typically, this will start with afternoon fatigue. You'll be fine in the morning, and then when it comes the afternoon, 2, 3, or 4 o'clock, you start to crash and don't have any energy, and then later in the evening, you'll get your second wind. That's characteristic of adrenal fatigue. And again, we have some supplements, mainly very high doses of certain B vitamins, and using the adrenal gland itself, and things that help release cortisol, like licorice. We put all these together in a single product, and it can be quite effective. In the long term, you need to deal with the sources of stress. So I hope that's helpful, and down below in the links we have some links to the products that we use to handle each one of these. Let me review those. Again, bacterial overgrowth, we use ADP or biocidin or grapeseed extract, olive leaf. Probably the most common one I use is ADP because it's not that toxic. Biocidin is probably the most toxic and strongest killer, but often you don't need that. The next thing is we have mitochondrial issues. Then we use ATP fuel, and that you take quite a bit of 3 twice a day, say on an empty stomach. And then for adrenal, my favorite product is Mega Stress. You can come home, be fatigued, take a Mega Stress and go out and have an evening, and it's quite effective. In the daytime, usually you'll take it in the morning. If you take it in the evening, like at 6 or 7 o'clock, you may have trouble going to sleep. It will give you that much energy. So those are 3 products that you can have around and deal with these types of short-term energy problems.